Good day, everyone. I've got horrible, tragic, just awful news for you all. In the post-production fiasco that I notified you about on Instagram, my entire video feed for this episode did not render or process properly, which means you're not going to be able to see my ugly mug the entire time you listen to me rave and rant about whatever it is I'm talking about this week. And I do apologize for that. I know it's your favorite part, but show must go on. So you're just going to have to listen. And as always, I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you coming by to listen to another episode. I love you all to death. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. Hello. Welcome back to Here's Why. Thank you so much for joining me this week for another episode. I am Chuck, your host, and I'm sick. So this is going to be one for the books. I don't know if I'm going to have like a sickly voice this entire time. I'll try to shake it off, but I might be putting some of you guys to sleep because I'm sleepy. There's like a bug going around or something, like some kind of virus or so. I don't know. Yeah, not feeling too hot, but the show must go on. And I don't take days off for little germs and stuff. It's not enough to keep me out of the fight. So I am here, and it's my birthday this week. And I wanted to kind of give you guys a little synopsis on all the things that I've learned in my few decades on this planet. And I didn't really come up with a huge list, which is kind of concerning. I know I have learned a lot. I've been here for quite a while, and I've definitely learned a lot of cool shit, but I couldn't really put any of it into a nutshell, and most of it just what I have written down here seems like an old crabby dude just bitching about things, which I don't want to be, but we'll see how it goes. I'll go through the bullet points as I always do when I'm by myself. I'm by myself this week, by the way, in case you haven't noticed already. I got no guests. No guests this week. It's just me, myself, and I. Just wanted to give you guys a little breather from my amazing, super awesome guests and record one on my own for the books, for the people. So I guess lesson number one that I've learned, most of the things that I have written down here are centered around other people. And that kind of freaks me out because that generally means when you're thinking about or talking about other people, more often than not, that's a projection of yourself because our ego is trying to hide like negative things about us because it doesn't want us to know that we're kind of full of shit sometimes and we have a lot of work to do on ourselves, right? So that's the ego's way of protecting itself, is by projecting problems that we have onto other people. And I hope that's not what I did here. I wrote this list out over the course of a couple of days, and I hope that's not what I have written down here. I hope this isn't just a projection of problems that I have to work on, because I got enough to work on right now. I got a full plate at the moment. But first things are passive aggressive people. There seems to be an epidemic of passive aggression these days. Uh, People, whether they're terrified of confrontation or they don't know how to operate in confrontation, or they just simply don't know how to assert themselves in a manner that's like professional or respectable. All those things are possible, but that's a problem. That's a really big problem when a majority of the human race cannot assert themselves and cannot hold their own in a conversation that has to do with self-respect and respect in the workplace and respect just in society. That's a big issue, and people need to start remembering how to interact with each other. I was just having this talk with a friend of mine today, actually. There seems to be a lack of social skills, for lack of a better word. A lot of us seem to really have forgotten how to interact with other human beings, especially with the rise of things like this, like podcasts or FaceTimes, phone calls, texts, social media. We've in that amazing technological advancement, we've sort of removed the humanity from a lot of conversations. Um, Technology is really cool and we can use it for some really awesome things, but when we remove humanity and we remove those important social skills, we just end up devolving really into very, very quickly into not great versions of ourselves, and versions of ourselves who, in my opinion, are rather weak and um, easily manipulated, easily scared into doing things. And this kind of passive aggression, like it's not I hate passive aggression more than I hate most things. It's so bothersome. Maybe I'm just too Eastern Bloc. Like I admire people who can outright say something to me if they have an issue, or say something to someone else if they have an issue with them. It's more respectable, for God's sake. And there's no guessing game. We don't have to do this whole like song and dance, like, is this person angry with me? Did I do something wrong? Did I do something right? And they're being salty. Like, what's going on there? That's so annoying to me. And I don't have time. I don't look, that's one thing I learned with my birthday passing, is that I'm getting older. Like, I don't have time for this nonsense. I'm here for like 80 years, 100, maybe, like, maybe if I'm really lucky, and that's provided I don't get hit by a truck tomorrow, like, anything can happen, and I do not have time for dancing around, beating around the bush. Like, there's no time for people like that. There's no time for people like that. There's an issue, talk about the issue. Why are we carrying issues around with us and saltiness and this weird energy that nobody cares for. Nobody feels good when there's a passive aggressive vibe in the air. That's not a cool like environment to stick around in. And I don't want to be in a situation like that. So if you're a passive aggressive person, eat shit and grow up. Um, oh, one more thing. People who communicate in memes. This is one thing that I really wanted to bring up here. Just this is definitely a personal thing. So I don't know if you guys can really relate to this, but people who, how do I put this? They'll put a meme up on social media that is very obviously targeted at a particular person, which is okay if you're 14 years old. That's the only time that that is okay. And when I was at 14, I don't even think I don't even think MySpace was a thing yet. I don't remember when MySpace happened, but there wasn't a lot of social media going on at all when I was that age. Internet wasn't really a big huge thing yet around that time. I'm still trying to think back. I don't know. I was probably high then, whatever. But in any event, that was a thing when social media did take off. There was a thing where, you know, the in the schoolyard there was some rumors going on about this person and that person, and they didn't like each other. So when you logged into your social media that night and you saw them put something up, you knew that what they were saying or what they were posting was about that person. That was okay. That was okay when we were 14. But if you're not 14 and you're still doing that, you have a huge problem. And I'll tell you why. Nobody around you is 14. So you're basically like a 30 some year old 14-year-old. And that's really gross. It's really gross to watch someone like that exist and like think people take them seriously, because we don't. We don't take people like you seriously because you're 14. Nobody takes 14-year-olds seriously, because that's the time that we all have in our lives where it's okay to be little dipshits and do things that we think are cool and they're not. But if you're not 14 and you're still doing that, big, big problem. Big, big problem for you. Stay inside. Don't talk to anyone because no one wants to hear from you. Moving on. Um, People who get into rhetoric, like political rhetoric and social justice rhetoric, and this is a tricky conversation to have. This is a tricky discussion to have, and I'm going to take a lot of flack for this probably, and that's cool because I don't care about people who get on the internet and bitch about other people on the internet. Uh, Political theater is for dumb people. Socrates said this better than I ever could. He said politics is theater for poor people. And the reason he said that is because back in the day, much like today, I guess, in a lot of ways, you couldn't afford to go see a show or a production or some big cool thing that was going on unless you were rich. And very, very, very few people were rich, just like today, right? So in Socrates' opinion, politics and political games were a way of delivering a form of theater to poor people to keep them as distracted as the rich people were. Um, so people who do get involved with that, look, I'm not saying like don't support your cause if you do have a cause, but please, for the love of God, comprehend the cause first. Don't just get involved in like the superficial, emotional, feel good version of the cause. Like, get to actually know the cause that you're spouting off, because you're going to get involved in these types of conversations. And if you can't hold your own, which we talked about in bullet point number one, a lot of people can't, that's gonna bother you. It's gonna bother the people around you, and then it's gonna cause a lot of problems when you have to shift your entire paradigm because you come into contact with someone who actually knows what they're talking about, and then it challenges your entire perspective because they have more data than you do, and then it's really not a comfortable situation to be in. That's another kind of situation where like the room gets weird and the vibe goes off and nobody wants to be around. It's a conversation that nobody wants to have, but they do happen. And when reality kind of kicks you in the ass because you chose not to have enough data to comprehend the reality of your situation, it's struggling. It makes you struggle. It makes you have to struggling is not a word, first of all. I have to slow down a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. It's my sick brain. It's troublesome, I think, is the word I was looking for. It's troublesome when uh we get ego checked by someone else because they're smarter than us on a particular topic. And I don't want people to be uncomfortable. I want people to be educated. So, if you're one of these people who gets involved in like rage rhetoric or clickbaity things, really not a good idea. Really, really not. And I'm not trying to speak from a place where I'm like holier than anyone or innocent in any of this, because I've fallen victim to clickbait all the time. I do it all the time. I still do it to this day. I'm not innocent in this matter, but every time I do, I feel like a dumbass right after. And I don't want people to feel like a dumbass. And I don't want to feel like a dumbass either. So how about we all just stop getting involved with that shit? I mean, it is theater. It's theater for poor people, but in this day and age, since everyone's kind of poor, it's just theater for dumb people, and I don't want us to be dumb. I don't want people who listen to me or to my podcast to be dumb. So let's change up that habit. I think that's what I think we should do. I think we should change up that habit. Moving on. So I mentioned earlier that it is my birthday week, and I'm not going to tell you guys how old I am, but I am going to tell you that I've been on the planet for longer than 3 decades. I'll tell you that. Um, and what I've learned, particularly about other people, is that I think 90% of the people that you meet are full of shit. And I'm not saying that I think that they're bad people. I just think that they're full of shit. We're very egocentric in this day and age, and we're very kind of narcissistic. Even if we don't really know it, many of us are. And the reason I'm saying this with such confidence is because I've noticed these habits in myself very much so over the years. And I've worked very hard to kind of rope those characteristics in and get a real handle on them so that they don't overwhelm me and I don't become a piece of shit. And I have succeeded in that fight, and I've failed as well many times in my life. And with that knowledge, I've come to believe really that most people who are moseying about these days, they're just desperately trying to get by. They don't have the time or the energy to really get a hold of themselves and get to know themselves enough to actually put forth their true selves in any given situation. So instead, they've gotten really, really good at fitting themselves into a box and painting a personality on that box. And I believe I used this same analogy in one of the last few episodes. I can't remember which one. And then presenting themselves to the world as that box, which is a really effective defense mechanism, but it's a stupid way to live. And it's really frustrating to people around you because they get to know you, or they think they get to know you, and then sooner or later your true colors kind of come out, and then you turn out to be someone that they never met before, and that bothers them, rightfully so. But these boxes that we put ourselves in, they're like vehicles that we seem to be using to try to get to happiness, but very few people are actually happy. That's what I've noticed too. And again, this is because I've noticed this in the past. I've noticed this in myself, and I don't think even the people who say that they're happy often are not actually happy at all. They're really just better at hiding their misery than we are, or than I am. And to me, that means there's two possibilities. There's first possibility is that the world is just miserable and life is pain and misery and suffering. Or two, there's no such thing as real happiness. Those are the two possibilities that we really have here. I tend to think that it's the first. I think that life is a struggle, and the world is a struggle, and it is filled with a lot of misery, and some of that misery is unbearable at times. But that's why I think it's so unbelievably important for us to drop all this bullshit. We have to drop this passive aggressive nonsense. We have to stop getting involved in this rhetoric, and we have to pull our heads out of our asses and really get to know ourselves. Because if we're ever going to have a chance at true happiness, we're going to have to learn how to grab this miserable fucking world by the balls and show it who's boss. Like, we need to do that. That's up to us, the individuals. That's up to us to do that so that we can have a chance at really getting to that happy place that does exist. True happiness does exist. I believe that. Um, but this world is fucking hard, and you can't make it to that happy place if you're a bitch. Basically, you can't make it there if you got no spine. You can't make it there if you're passive aggressive. You can't make it there if you're living on social media and you're living in rage rhetoric and political theater. You cannot, you will never get there, which is why I think as a society it's so important for us to drop all these habits and start getting back into being human and starting to relearn the process of being a well functioning human being. Um, we also need to get rid of these male feminists. I don't know if you guys have noticed this. There's been an influx of male feminists over, I don't know, the last decade or so. But holy shit. Look, I don't like discrimination. I'm not a, I don't discriminate against people, but I think if there was one group of people that we should, as a society, as a whole, discriminate against, it's probably male feminists. It's either male feminists or it's feet people, guys who are into feet, which male feminists are probably in defeat, let's be honest, right? So I think male feminists as a whole, we would really do a lot better if they weren't around. And if you're a woman out there, if you're a lady and you are like friends with a male feminist and you can't see through that bullshit, you have much bigger problems on your plate. You need to stay inside and you need to start understanding psychology and the male brain and what that dude is really doing. Because those guys are fucking dangerous, dude. Those guys are fucking weasels. There's no such thing as a male feminist. There is no such thing as that. Let me just say that right off the bat. So if you're around one, just be very clear that he's full of shit. He's using that status, that label, I'm a male feminist, to weasel his way into your life. And then the moment that your defense is dropped, he will strike. He'll take advantage of that. It's usually when you're down, when you're not in a good place emotionally, when your guard is down, and he will take advantage of that, and he will fucking ruin your life. And it's fucking so gross, dude. Those guys, they wear their pussy hats and they fucking they try to put on these airs that they're like some kind of social justice hero, and 99.100% of the time they got no balls, they got no brains, they got no personality, they got no spines. They can't fight, they can't pick shit up, they can't move heavy things around, they can't stand up for themselves. These are pussies. These are the absolute bottom barrel of society, and I frankly think we should get rid of them. But that goes back to the whole discrimination thing. I really don't like to discriminate against people. I'm just saying, if we ever have to pick a group of people to like put on a boat and then just send that boat fucking into the ocean, it should be male feminists. It should be male feminists and their foot fetish counterparts. That's what I think. I'm also not into kink shaming, by the way. This is not a kink shaming channel, and I won't tolerate any kink shaming, but foot fetishes are disgusting, and the people who have them are atrocious excuses for human beings. And I think with that, I'll wrap this one up because I really am pretty sick, guys. I appreciate you tolerating my sick voice. I appreciate you tolerating my shaky throat. I got a throat problem going on right now, and my grumpiness. I tend to get kind of grumpy when I'm sickly because I don't like being sick. I think it's a form of weakness, and it takes me out of the gym. And when I can't work out, I get all pissed off. You guys know how it is. All right. So today was a rough one for me, but I do appreciate you sticking around and staying with me. Y'all are real ride or dies. If you have made it this far in this episode, you are a ride or die, and you deserve some merch, which is coming out. It's in the works right now. You also deserve a discount on some of Hex Beauty Lab's skin products because they're really terrific products. So go to their website at hexbeautylab.com or their Instagram at Hex Beauty Lab and use the code Here's Why at checkout for an awesome deal. And then come back here next week for a cooler episode where I'm not sick and I'll have a much brighter outlook and I won't be bitching and moaning about goofy stuff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love you to pieces, and we'll see you soon.